is unfair.
Hey everybody, it's the Critic here, and before you try to lynch me, let me just make it clear how much I love How to Train Your Dragon. It is one of my favorite Dreamworks movies, and I highly recommend it to anyone who loves feel-good action-adventure fantasy stories. However, a movie being great does not mean it's perfect, and How to Train Your Dragon is no exception. I also wholeheartedly believe that it's just as important to criticize what you love as it is to criticize what you hate. So without further ado, let's get into what I dislike about How to Train Your Dragon.
First and foremost, why are the accents in this movie so inconsistent? Some characters, such as Stoic and Gobber, speak with thick Nordic accents befitting of the movie's setting, which, might I remind you, is a medieval Scandinavian village.
What am I going to do with him, Gobber?
Put him in training with the others.
No, I'm serious.
So am I.
He'd be killed before you let the first dragon out of its cage.
Oh, you don't know that.
I do know that,
No, you
actually.
don't.
No, actually, I do.
No, you don't.
Then you have characters like Hiccup, Astrid, and the rest of the teens of Berk who speak with modern American accents.
If you're planning on getting eaten, I'd definitely go with the Grunkle.
You were wise to seek help from the world's most deadly weapon. It's me.
I love this plan.
I didn't...
You're crazy. I like that. So, what is the plan?
It's like the voice director forgot where this film was set, and decided to have some of the voice actors speak with their normal voices. That being said, the voice acting itself is really solid. Each member of the cast does a great job selling the emotions that their characters are meant to be portraying from scene to scene. For the most part. Yeah, there are a couple of instances where the actors give an incredibly flat delivery. The most egregious one is in this scene, where Toothless is barreling towards the ground with Hiccup and Astrid on his back.
Toothless! What is wrong with you? Mad Dragon! He said he's not usually like this. Oh no. Toothless, what are you doing? We need her to like us. And now the spinning. Thank you for nothing, you useless reptile.
Jay, buddy, the dragon that your character is riding is pulling off all of these crazy ass maneuvers at ludicrous speeds and scaring the girl that your character is trying desperately to convey said dragon's innocence to. The same girl that your character just so happens to have a huge crush on. Would you mind emoting just a teensy little bit here? With the way Hiccup's talking, you'd think Toothless just peed on his rug. There's another scene during the final battle with the film's main antagonist, where the teenagers of Berk arrive riding dragons of their own to save the day that has some less than stellar voice acting.
Look at us! We're on a dragon! We're on dragons! All of us!
Oh yeah, dude, it really sounds like you're excited about this life-changing experience you're going through. Now, contrary to how it might sound, none of what I've brought up so far negatively impacts the story that the movie is trying to tell me. Sure, the inconsistent quality of the voice acting hinders my immersion a bit, but I'm still able to enjoy the story itself regardless. With that said, let's get into the things that do hurt the story.
Why does Hiccup go back for Astrid in order to try and convince her that Toothless isn't a creature to be feared? He was already dead set on leaving Berk, but for no reason whatsoever, he has Toothless snatch Astrid up so that they can take her on a ride through the clouds.
And I do mean for no reason. We don't even get so much as a single line of dialogue which explains Hiccup's sudden change of heart. What kind of bullshit is that?
Think of things from Hiccup's perspective. Throughout the entirety of the movie, this kid has been shunned and vilified by his village for being weak, uncoordinated, and rebellious. He's only recently earned everyone's respect by successfully incapacitating dragons during dragon fighting camp, and he only managed to accomplish that by studying Toothless in secret. In order to keep his double life as a dragon rider under wraps, he's gonna have to kill a dragon in front of everyone in his village, his father included. Something Hiccup knows he won't be able to do because, as was established at the beginning of the movie when he first met a downed Night Fury, he's not a killer. So, unless Hiccup wants to be burnt to a crisp by whichever dragon he's pitted against in the ring, his only other option here is to run away, which he was already doing. For Odin's sake, he even had a basket of supplies prepared for the journey and everything.
On top of that, Hiccup and Astrid haven't gotten any closer by this point in the film, and that's because Hiccup's been spending more and more time bonding with Toothless. He's grown to care more about learning everything there is to know about Night Furies and dragons in general than he ever did about getting together with Astrid, as is shown by everything that he's done after freeing Toothless at the beginning of the movie. So even if Hiccup was acting on his feelings for Astrid, it once again comes right the fuck out of nowhere. And how exactly did Astrid survive for that long in Toothless's little valley without getting discovered and then promptly eaten up by him? Remember, Hiccup is the only human whom Toothless has grown to trust because it's not like he's done that great of a job of teaching Toothless not to eat any other human beings that might encroach on their territory.
If the writers wanted Hiccup to go back for Astrid in order to not only facilitate the two of them ending up together by the end of the movie, but to keep the plot moving, then they should have given him a reason to go back for Astrid to begin with. Maybe she stole a journal of his that has important information on it that he needs to navigate the oceans of Scandinavia or something, and so he needs to get it back from her. That all makes infinitely more sense than just having him go back for Astrid for no reason. Especially when the movie not only gave him many reasons not to do so, but then showed how doing so put his and Toothless's well-being at greater risk than if they had just left.
Don't get me wrong, I'm not against Hiccup going back for Astrid or staying in Berk. I just want it to make sense for him to do these things, because the way they go down in the movie makes no sense. Speaking of things that don't make sense,
you know how at the beginning of the third act, Hiccup gathers all of the teenagers of Berk and pairs them up with each of the dragons that they've been training with throughout the movie, which they then proceed to ride into their battle with the big bad dragon whose name I still don't know? How did Hiccup tame all of those dragons to the point where they would be willing to let other humans mount them in such a short period of time? I could see him being able to calm some of them down, since he used pleasant means to incapacitate those specific dragons during the training scenes, like the Gronkle for example, but the Zippleback? Didn't Hiccup use an eel to frighten it back into its pen? Wouldn't this dragon hate the sight of him? Aren't these also the same dragons that have been locked up by the village for ages? Who knows how much abuse they've been put through by the up-and-coming dragon hunters of Berk? You're honestly telling me that they'd suddenly play nice just because Hiccup rubbed grass on their snouts? Just look at how long it took Toothless to warm up to Hiccup. They didn't just suddenly become the best of friends. It took damn near a quarter of the fucking movie just for Toothless to let Hiccup touch him. Yet, suddenly, the dragons in the pen are willing to help their human masters out on a whim? I could maybe see Hiccup getting one dragon to warm up to Astrid so that the two of them can fly over to the big bad, but pairing all of them up with the other teenagers?
That just makes no fucking sense. I mean, it's just bullshit. Fuck.
Oh my.
Forget the dragons, how did Hiccup get the other teenagers to go along with his plan? Remember, their last interaction with Hiccup saw him renouncing his Vikinghood during his final test. Then, the most dangerous dragon they knew, a Night Fury, showed up and blasted its way into the arena to save Hiccup, very nearly killing a lot of their fellow villagers in the process before being captured by Stoic. On top of all of that, Stoic no doubt spilled the beans about Hiccup's friendship with Toothless and how he knew about the dragon's nest, but chose to keep it a secret in order to protect him, since directly after that scene in the arena, we see him organizing one final raid on the island. He already disowned Hiccup to his face. What makes you think he wouldn't rat his son out to their village? With that in mind, not only have the other teenagers found out about Hiccup's secret, but that secret is antithetical to their very philosophy as Vikings, which is that dragons are bad and they should be killed because they're savage monsters. Are you telling me that none of them had doubts about Hiccup's worth as a person after all of this shit happened? He didn't have to convince any of them that they were all on the same side, or that they'd have to put their differences aside in order to fight a battle that's bigger than themselves? It makes sense for Astrid to follow Hiccup into battle because she at least has had some time to get to know him and Toothless, and has seen firsthand how kind and awesome dragons are as companions, but the rest of them?
I'm sorry, but the way that Hiccup's plan unfolds in the movie has always struck me as a severe case of narrative convenience. All of the other teenagers and dragons fall in line and do what Hiccup tells them to do because the plot needs them to, even though the plot has given them several reasons not to fall in line and do what Hiccup tells them to do. Once again, these problems could have been solved if the writers had shown us Hiccup talking things out with the other teenagers and regaining their trust with his cunning and wit. After all, his bravery, selflessness, and leadership is what redeems him in the eyes of his village at the end of the movie. But instead, we get nothing. While we're on the topic of the ending though, here is the last thing that I'm going to be bitching about in this video.
So, as you all know if you've seen the movie, How to Train Your Dragon ends with dragons being fully integrated and accepted within Burkean society. As much of a sucker as I am for optimistic endings like this, I can't help but raise an eyebrow at just how quickly the tensions between the dragons and the Vikings were cooled. As I mentioned earlier in this video, dragon hunting is baked into the culture of Burke's Vikings. Being able to kill a dragon is so important to them that if you're a clumsy oaf who can't fend for themselves like Hiccup, you'll be shunned and ostracized by your peers. The dragons of this universe have spent generations upon generations raiding the village of Burke and stealing their cattle in order to feed their master. And during that time, the humans of this universe have attempted to invade the island that the dragon's nest is located within through naval voyages. There's no doubt been hundreds of Vikings that have been killed during these voyages, as have hundreds of dragons. And yet all of that animosity gets resolved within the span of, at most, a couple months?
That's just impossible! I mean, think about it!
When in the history of ever have two groups that have had a history of warring with one another ever just gotten along, all because they teamed up to defeat a bigger threat? I could understand the village accepting Toothless into their ranks, since Hiccup is the son of their chief, and the two of them directly killed the big bad, but the movie ending with dragons and humans living in peace and harmony is a nonsensical move that was only done out of the misguided belief that kids' movies have to end on a literal utopian note.
Well, now that I've dealt a good blow to my reputation, I think now's as good a time as any to close out this video. Once again, let me reiterate that I don't hate How to Train Your Dragon. I just don't think it's a perfect movie. Hell, if I wanted to, I could rant about all of the things that I loved about it for twice as long, which is something that I might do in a future video. Until then, I'm Critic, and I'll see you guys next time.